Before we begin, like, comment, and share, because this message may save someone's soul tonight. Ibn Arabi once said a sentence so sharp and unexpected that his students froze in silence: if staying destroys your soul, even if it is your family, leave. They stared at him, shocked. Leave your own family? Walk away from the people who raised you? But Ibn Arabi looked at them calmly and added, "You are not commanded to stay where Allah is no longer with you." He explained that some of the most dangerous chains in life are the ones disguised as love, people who claim to care for you while crushing your spirit, relatives who call themselves family but poison your peace. Family is a blessing, he said, but only when there is mercy in that home. Some houses are prisons built from guilt. One of his students stepped forward, voice trembling. "Master, how do we know when it's time to leave?" Ibn Arabi replied without hesitation, "When staying kills your spirit faster than loneliness ever could." He spoke of people wounded not by enemies, but by those who slept under the same roof. People drained not by strangers, but by their own blood. People who spent years believing they were unworthy because someone told them so 1,000 times. He placed his hand over his heart and said, "Allah placed a light in here. Whoever dims it, blood or not, does not belong near you." He reminded them that on the day of judgment, no parent, no sibling, no relative will stand between a person and Allah. You will not be asked why you left people who harmed you, you will be asked why you allowed your soul to die in their hands. Another student whispered, "But Master, what if they accuse me? What if they say I'm a traitor, ungrateful, selfish?" Ibn Arabi closed his eyes and sighed, "They will. Those who harm you always play the victim when you finally walk away." He lifted a handful of sand and let it fall through his fingers. "You were created to grow, not to rot." He explained that the heaviest prisons are not made of stone, but of expectations, manipulation, and fear. And then he spoke the words that would echo for centuries: "Leave, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. For Allah loves the one who escapes harm more than the one who worships inside it." You are not leaving your family. You are leaving pain disguised as family. Go where Allah opens your chest, not where they crush it. And after he spoke those words, the courtyard fell into a deep, aching silence. Some students stared at the ground, feeling old wounds rise to the surface, memories of nights filled with shouting, of love turned into control, of hearts slowly suffocating under the weight of obligation. Others wiped their eyes, realizing they had never heard anyone give them permission to protect their own soul. Ibn Arabi looked at them gently and said, "Do not confuse blood with destiny. Allah chooses your soul's path, not your family's expectations." One student, the quietest among them, finally whispered, "Master, if I leave, where do I go?" Ibn Arabi stepped closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and answered, "You go where your heart can breathe. Where Allah's mercy feels closer than fear. Where peace feels like home." He pointed toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set. Sometimes Allah writes your next chapter in a land far away. And sometimes He writes it in the same place, but with different people. The student lowered his head. "But what if I leave and regret it?" Ibn Arabi replied, "The only regret in life is staying where Allah has already removed His blessing." Then he told them a story, a true one, of a young man who spent years trying to please a family that mocked him, belittled him, and crushed his spirit. One night, unable to bear the pain, he walked away with nothing but a prayer in his chest. For months he wandered alone, terrified he made a mistake. But in that loneliness, something extraordinary happened. He found clarity. He found purpose. He found Allah. Years later, he became one of the greatest scholars of his time. And when people asked him how he found the courage to leave, he would say, "I lost a house, but I found myself." Ibn Arabi looked at his students after telling the story and said, "Sometimes Allah isolates you because He wants your heart without interference. Sometimes He removes people because they were blocking your growth." He walked toward the gate of the courtyard and added softly, "Leaving toxic people is not abandonment. It is obedience. It is choosing the life Allah intended for you." A heaviness lifted from the students' hearts. Some cried openly. Others breathed deeply, as if tasting freedom for the first time in years. And Ibn Arabi concluded, "If staying buries your soul, leaving saves your iman. And nothing, not family, not culture, not fear, is worth losing your soul for." The night deepened around them, the sky turning into a vast canvas of quiet stars. But the students felt something stirring in their chests, a mixture of grief, relief, and a strange new courage they had never known before. Ibn Arabi could feel it too, and his voice softened even more as he continued. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "Not every person Allah places in your life is meant to stay. Some are tests. Some are lessons. And some are warnings." He paced slowly in front of them, hands folded behind his back. "When your family becomes the storm instead of the shelter, that storm is your sign. When they belittle you, mock your faith, crush your confidence, that pain is not random. It is Allah telling you, this is not your home." A young student with trembling hands spoke up. "Master, what about patience? Aren't we supposed to endure hardship?" Ibn Arabi stopped walking and turned to him. "Patience is for trials sent by Allah, not abuse committed by people." He continued, "If a house collapses on you, do you stay underneath it because you want to be patient? Or do you crawl out to save your life?" The student lowered his head, understanding at last. Ibn Arabi lifted his gaze to the sky. Even the Prophet walked away from people who harmed him. Not out of hatred, but to protect the message entrusted to him. Then he looked at them again. "And your heart is also a message from Allah. Protect it." Another student asked, voice cracking, "But Master, what if they change after I leave?" Ibn Arabi nodded gently. "Then Allah will bring them back to you when it is safe. Distance does not destroy what is real. It only destroys what is harmful." He pointed at the students one by one. "Your soul is not a sacrifice. Your happiness is not a sin. Your peace is not negotiable." Then came the words that struck them hardest. "You are not responsible for healing people who choose to hurt you. You are only responsible for protecting the soul Allah gave you." Silence again, heavy, sacred, unmistakably true. He sat down among them, the desert night settling like a blanket over the courtyard. "Leaving does not mean hatred," he said softly. "Leaving means choosing life over slow spiritual death." His final words that night felt like a door opening somewhere deep inside each heart. If Allah removes you from a place, it is because He is preparing a better one. And if He asks you to walk away, walk without fear. The one who frees you will guide you. The students sat in a half circle around him, their faces lit only by the soft shimmer of moonlight. Some clutched their robes tightly, others held their breath as if one more truth might shatter everything they once believed about loyalty, duty, and love. Ibn Arabi looked at them with the calmness of someone who had walked through countless inner storms and survived every one. "Let me tell you something you will not hear from many," he said quietly. "Loyalty to people who destroy you is not loyalty. It is self-betrayal." His words cut through the silence like a blade. He continued, "And Allah never commands a believer to betray the soul He Himself created. One of the older students spoke, his voice heavy. Master, I fear that if I leave, I will be alone. Ibn Arabi turned toward him and answered gently. Loneliness with Allah is better than belonging with people who break you. He placed his hand over his heart again, tapping it softly. When you walk away from those who wound you, you do not walk into emptiness, you walk into His protection. Another student whispered. But Master, will Allah be displeased with me if I cut ties? Ibn Arabi shook his head. Allah is displeased when you let people destroy you. The one who preserves his iman is more beloved than the one who sacrifices it to please others. Then he told them about a woman he had once met, someone gentle, quiet, full of faith. Her own family mocked her prayers, belittled her dreams, treated her devotion like a flaw. For years she endured, thinking patience was piety. But one night, broken and exhausted, she left their home with nothing but her prayer mat and her tears. And do you know what she told me years later? Ibn Arabi said, his voice soft. She said, the night I left them was the night I finally met Allah. He paused, letting the weight of that settle. Sometimes Allah hides Himself from you while you cling to people. And He reveals Himself the moment you let go. The wind picked up slightly, brushing sand across the courtyard like a whisper. The students watched him, hearts raw. What you leave for Allah, he said, He replaces with better. Always. He raised his eyes toward the sky. Even if you walk away empty-handed, you will arrive full of clarity, full of purpose, full of Him. Then he stood, his robe flowing like a wave in the night breeze. Before walking inside, he turned one last time and said, Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who protects your soul. The moment you understand that, your life begins. As the moon climbed higher, the courtyard seemed suspended between earth and heaven. The students watched Ibn Arabi with breaths held, knowing his final words would stay with them for the rest of their lives. He stood at the doorway, the shadows behind him, the silver light before him, a silhouette of wisdom carved by time and truth. He looked at each of them slowly, as though memorizing their faces, and said, You were not created to be broken by the people closest to you. You were created to walk toward Allah, even if that path leads you away from them. The students felt something tighten in their chests, not fear, but release. A freedom they didn't know they were allowed to feel. Ibn Arabi's voice dropped to a gentle whisper. If someone's presence kills your peace, their absence is a mercy. He stepped forward and placed his hand over his heart. Do not confuse culture with faith. Faith protects your soul. Culture protects people's ego. Then he said the line that felt like a doorway opening in the night. If you must choose between hurting people and hurting your soul, choose people. Your soul is what returns to Allah, not their opinions. One of the students began to cry softly. Ibn Arabi walked over, lifted the young man's chin, and said, Courage is not fighting enemies. Courage is leaving what Allah has released you from. The wind grew still. Even the night seemed to listen. He took a step back, his eyes glowing with a strange, tender sadness, the sadness of someone who has seen too many hearts imprison themselves in the name of obligation. Leave with gentleness, he said. Leave with dignity. Leave without hatred in your chest. And then, his final instruction, a truth so simple, yet so freeing it felt like a blessing. Walk away with peace, so that peace can walk toward you. He turned toward the dark hallway and whispered without looking back. The moment you choose your soul, Allah chooses a new life for you. And with that, he disappeared into the quiet of the night, leaving behind students whose hearts were no longer chained, whose futures no longer belonged to fear, and whose souls, for the first time, felt like their own.